going. Let me go. I'm real fast.
Hey everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome wherever you are in the world. Sorry, Tsavo is in the middle of stopping the rise of the robots right now. He literally just announced that his Roomba's kicked off and he had to go and stop that. See, I was smart enough. My Roomba is going, but I'm in a separate room with the door shut, so you can't actually hear that the robots are taking over and tidying my house. So welcome to this live stream. We're here to talk about, well, you know, I don't know what we're here to talk about. It's Friday morning. It's been a hard week, and my brain is fried. You know, I'm on the coffee. I'm on a lot of coffee, desperately trying to remember what it is that we're supposed to be doing. If only there was a tool. There was a tool that could help me, some kind of long-term memory. Hang a minute. I've got an idea here. Let me go to pieces. What is the agenda for the LTM live stream I was just looking at? I wonder. That was it. Yes. LTM live stream. Yes. This is what we're talking about. Yes, welcome to the new Pieces long-term memory. We are here to show off the cool things that Pieces can do. And thanks to Pieces, I have got my agenda for what we're going to be talking about on this stream. I absolutely love this. I don't need to think anymore. I can just let Pieces do my thinking for me. Maybe not strictly true. But yeah, welcome to the stream. I want to kick off by introducing everyone that we've got here today. I've got an excellent lineup of guests. Really privileged to have the brains behind Pieces here with me today. So if you don't know me, I'm Jim Bennett. I'm the head of developer advocacy at Pieces. It's my job to hang out with you all and share all the good stuff that Pieces are doing. But the folks I've got with me today, it's their job to build the amazing technology. So let's kick off and introduce the team. Let's, I guess, start on that way with Brian. Say hello, introduce yourself, Brian.
Hey everyone, Brian. I see you, Richard, in the chat. Good to see you. Yeah, I'm the head of MLOps at Pieces. And what that means, I am primarily responsible for kind of the intersection of ML and software. So whenever we want to run a model on device, I kind of figure out how we get that to run on your computer fast and efficient without eating up all of your VRAM, while still being accurate. And yeah, I also could work on things like vector search and embedding models and all the like. So a bit of a jack of all trades.
You're the genius behind the models. And Brian occasionally becomes my favorite person when I say, oh, this local model is causing me problems. And he just does his magic and makes it all work. So Brian's doing some absolutely amazing stuff. So every time you use a local model and it's fast and it's efficient, Brian is the genius behind making that happen. Cool. Sam. Say hello, introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Sam. I'm Chief Artificial Intelligence Officer at Pieces. And yeah, what I do is basically take all of the fun toys out there, graph neural networks, large language models, agents, orchestrate them, architect them, and build a lot of our core features. So that's my job. It's incredibly fun. It's a lot of work, but I love it.
So yes, every time you're interacting with an AI, and it's doing cool stuff, and you're wondering how all the magic works with things like the long-term memory. It's Sam's genius that makes it all happen. And then finally, if I can point the right way, Tsavo, say hello, introduce yourself.
What's going on, everyone? Good to be on a stream here. It's been a minute, but we've been working hard. Tsavo here, CEO, technical co-founder at Pieces. I think my job is to kind of see what's going on in the world, build a company that complements it deeply, but also feel what I need as a developer, as an executive, as a team lead, and see how we can build technology to make it just a little bit better. And I would say at large, I don't want to see a world where all developers are doing is just watching the robots run. That's not particularly fun. I do want to build technology that is at the intersection of what humans are uniquely good at and what AI systems can be uniquely good at. So yeah, here we are.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, the reason we exist, the reason we've got the strong human focus is all thanks to the amazing work that Tsavo is doing, putting together this company and making this all happen. Seeing a lot of noise in the chat. Great to have you here. So Krish, welcome. Glad to have you here. LinkedIn user. We've got some anonymous people
Right.
stalking us. Great to have you with us as well. Richard, good to see you. Greenwich, great to have you here as well. Roxy, Henry, good morning, good evening, good night to everybody who is here. So, Suranesh, you're saying you're from India. I absolutely love it when I'm on a stream with folks and we've got people from all around the world. I think the biggest stream I ever did in terms of locations, we had 36 different countries in the audience. So please drop in the chat where you are. We're currently based across 2 continents, 3 countries, I believe, right now. I'm in the west coast of the US. Tsavo, you are in Cincinnati right now, Ohio.
Midwest, yeah.
Yep. Brian, you're Toronto.
Montreal. I made a recent move.
Oh, Montreal. I apologize. So in Canada, awesome. And then Sam, you're in Spain. Is that right?
Yep. Barcelona, Spain.
Yeah. So we are representing 3 countries, 2 continents right now. So drop in the chat. Let me know where in the world you are all from. It's nice to have a good international audience with us. Michaela's here as well. Hey, great to have you. And yeah, Chris is saying, join the stream just to know more about LTM2, because this is the thing we've been teasing. We are doing a product hunt launch next week on Tuesday. We'll get the link to that dropped in the chat if you want to come and support us on Product Hunt, because we are launching LTM2, the 2nd generation of our long-term memory engine. But I guess before we dive into that, I'd like to kind of set the stage and just talk a little bit really with the team around some of the comments that Tsavo made around this idea that it's not about replacing the human, it's about augmenting the human. We're not about the rise of the robots. And this is something that is very, very important to me. I'm not a big fan of this kind of, for want of a better expression, tech bro culture that we're going to have AIs that's going to replace the people, and you're going to give us $11 billion to buy our AIs to replace the humans, and humans are going to become obsolete. I don't believe that is a future that is ever going to happen, or is a future that we want to happen. The reason I write code is because I love writing code. I don't want an AI to do it for me. I want to do it because it's fun. And I think, look at the nods across the room here. I think we all agree. We want to write code because it's fun. And it's kind of important that the human idea, to me, is inherent in everything that we do. And I know, Tsavo, you kind of touched on this as kind of human focus. So I'd love if you can just kind of just dive more into your thoughts about the human and how AI can help and augment the human, and how that's kind of set you in motion on this journey to where we are now with the Pieces long-term memory.
Yeah, I think, at the end of the day, we want to build systems that are fundamentally helpful, right? And what we mean by fundamentally helpful is, and help at large, is giving you time back to focus on the things that truly matter, right? To focus on applying the creativity, to focus on, building your vision, to focus on, delighting customers, right? And building a software experience that you put in someone's hands and you put a smile on their face, and you give them, time back to do what they enjoy. And in the world of software development, right, like time is spread across a lot of things. Before the rise of generative AI, I would say time was probably 40% research and 60% writing code. As we got into this journey a couple of years ago, we started with like phase 1, which is, how do we allow developers to move faster through this volume of context that they're interacting with, right? And what we mean by move faster is pick up where you left off, right? Transfer some data to another team member, whatever else it might be. And in our earliest days, Pieces was pretty simple, but it was when I save something that's a valuable material, a code snippet or a screenshot, I want that to be enriched with AI, tagged, titled, described, whatever else. And that enrichment process is saving me time on the organization front. I hate titling things. I hate organizing things. I hate generating tags and whatever. Like, I just want to have the AI do that. That was really phase 1, is like humans saving things to pieces. And then, kind of like 2 years in, we started to see the advent of large language models and generative AI really, come to fruition. And what this meant is we, kind of approximated the shift between the research and actually writing code to where it's like, all right, you're writing code faster. Now you're writing code in more languages, jumping projects, collaborating with different teams. And the volume that the human is interacting with is ballooning exponentially. And so, in phase 2 is really like, how do you interact with the context conversationally, and then generate new things to potentially save to pieces. And that was, again, like a primitive application of AI, changing the form factors in which you interact with your tool. But then we got into phase 3, which was half the time we realized folks don't even realize they should save something until they realize it's too late, right? And so where is that? When was I working on it? Whatever else. And that's where we kind of came up with the belief that pieces should save things for you, right? And it should capture this context continuously on your behalf, anticipate what you're going to need later, and make sure it has that for you in the moment without you even thinking. And so that's where we started to get into long-term memory, right? And the fundamental problem with long-term memory is that 60% of the world's data actually lives on device. It's not organized in the cloud. It's not neat and proper and easily findable up there, but it's actually very much so right here on your device in the moment, the stuff you're interacting with. And that's where we said, we're going to understand the entire context across your operating system, from this app to that app, from this task to that task. And we want to preserve that, right? And so phase 3 is really the opposite of phase 1. It's not humans saving context and doing all that. It's pieces saving this context for you. And the biggest thing that we had to overcome was aggregating this context. How do we ingest it from every application, from every operating system in real time, preserve it locally, privately, and then how do we organize it and resurface it in a conversational experience? And we mastered all that, I would say, in phase 1 with live context and then LTM1. But there's an interesting thing, if you think about it, is like memory is kind of broken down into 2 aspects: short-term memory and long-term memory. So we knew long-term memory was a big challenge. And we said, how do we build the equivalent of REM sleep for pieces, right? How does pieces scrub through these memories, scrub through these events, and form better longer-term memories that are deeply associated, deeply contextualized, so that you can have deeper memory and pick up or transfer context across your team or project to project. So that's where we are today, LTM2. I know I went on a little bit of a spiel there, but that's a little bit of the backstory. Yeah.
That's really cool stuff. And I really like, especially at the end there, where you kind of liken this to the human memory, because to me, I see pieces as very much this human-centric idea that even though we are proactively capturing this information, this context for you, it's all driven by what you are doing as a human. This is not a knowledge mining system that's going to go off to your SharePoint site or your Google Suite and search for information that you've never seen before. Yeah, there are tools to do that. There's no point in trying to reinvent that wheel. Instead, where we follow the human in every application that they're using and every activity that they're doing, we are capturing the human memories, the things that you're likely to have forgotten, and then help you make those connections across that through the power of the ability for the AI to reason over everything it's doing. So if you don't remember what you did yesterday, pieces can remind you because it's been exposed to the same information that you've had before. If you're trying to think, oh, what was it that Tsavo asked me to do last week? Or what was the package Brian recommended I tried last month? Or Sam said, oh, here's a cool AI paper, you should read this, 2 days ago. I don't have to use my memory to recall that. And as we know, human memory fades over time. We get, things get filed away differently. I can rely on pieces to act like my human memory and just have access to those bits of information that that was available to me as a human. So we're kind of building it around this augmentation of the individual human, rather than let's just go and search all the sources of information that you've never seen before and potentially bring back a whole load of garbage that you don't necessarily care about because we're mining a huge amount of information.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a very, very powerful take on things. And just think about, like you said earlier, as developers, we are jumping around between a whole lot of different technologies. I mean, Brian, I know, for example, you seem to spend half your time in Dart and half your time in Rust. So, how do tools like Pieces help you with this constant context switching, with this constant, I need to dive into this language and this language and this language? What are the benefits for you?
I kind of think of it like the Matrix, where you kind of download these knowledge packets in real time instead of having to go back and do all the work yourself manually. Like, when I need to pick up a Rust project that I was working on like 3 months ago, I can query pieces, find that nice little rolled up contextualized memory package of Rust, inject it into my Copilot chat, and it's like I just downloaded into my digital brain. I have all that information there, like nicely laid out for me. The people I was working with, the packages I was working on, the errors I was encountering. It reduces so much of my need to go back and kind of review resources that I had online or papers that I've saved or whatever. So it's just saving me a ton of time and having to kind of jog my memory. I'm digitally jogging my memory, I guess I could say.
Mm-hmm. So you go and kind of go into pieces, get that history, and you've got that I know Kung Fu. And,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
we think about that scene in The Matrix, and obviously we're talking about a movie that's like 25 years old now, but still seminal work, absolutely fantastic. This ability for Neo to suddenly absorb this information and then use it straight away. You know, he jumps into the dojo with Morpheus and actually has a fight. But it's kind of having that information is there. It's been retrieved from somewhere. I guess the only difference in this case is Neo never knew Kung Fu in the first place, whereas you knew this Rust stuff. And then as you're getting these reminders, it may well trigger some of that muscle memory, some of that long-term memories that you've got, and kind of allow you to remake this connection of, oh yeah, I remember that, but you needed that nudge, that prompt to do it. Again, it's augmenting you as a human.
Yeah.
So just saying about humans, I know I asked all those folks watching us, where in the world are you? And getting a few answers coming through. So Henry is in Germany. Great to have you from Germany. So more European representation. Micah is in Austin in Texas. So any other folks on the call, let us know where in the world you are. Just a few more comments I want to pick up on. Henry's saying AI will never replace humans. Maybe AI will write code, but we aren't coders. We are engineers. And I think this is kind of important because, Sam, you were saying that you're digging into these different AI tools, these AI models, these different ideas. You know, you need to bring that human level creativity to what you do. And obviously, you could throw it all at AI and say, make me a recommendation, but it's not really going to have that deeper creativity that you have as a human. So how do you find that AI can help with what you're doing, but also what do you think of the limitations with the kind of creative work that you have got to do around the different models, the different ideas, the different concepts that you're bringing together?
Well, yes, it's a great question. I think, and Brian, I really loved Rust and Kung Fu, the comparison for me. That's definitely Rust is the Kung Fu of programming languages. I can get behind that. But to your point, Jim, I'm going to get back to what you said, right? You said, I love coding. You know, that's what I'm here to do. That's what I like doing. And I agree with that completely. And I think the role of the LTM2 and what we do at Pieces is to enable that, to enable people to do what they love, their core focus as much as possible, and sort of cut away all of the aspects which we're less excited about. So I mean, for me, that's never doing the same thing twice, right? So when I solve a problem, I don't want to have to solve it again and again and again. I don't want my team to have to solve it again and again and again. I want to solve it once, record it, remember it, and then spread that memory across the people I work with. When I join a meeting, I want everyone in that meeting to know what we're talking about, know the context of why we're all there, and, not to be there if they don't need to be. And I think what we've built here really enables that, It enables us to take all of this context. It's too much to offload continuously to everybody. Yeah. But what this enables is people to query that, people to share it. And then the result is you're never in a meeting again. If you're effective with this tool, you're never in a meeting again where people don't know what's up. People aren't there if they don't need to be. And then all these other aspects, because this sort of sits across, your entire workflow, it helps me. It helps me do things like I can write bullet points, immediately ask Pieces to flesh it out into an email. I can scroll through chat histories and say, like, has this already been mentioned? Do I even need to talk here? And it really, all of the sort of sum of all of those effects is I can just focus on the things I love doing the most, which, as you said, are the things which we can't offload to AI. It's joining the dots. It's taking many components and building something creatively that hasn't been seen before. I sort of disagree a little bit with this whole like dichotomy between these are things AI can do, these are things people can do, yada, yada, yada. There's a strict wall in between. I think what I'm passionate about, and I feel this a lot at Pieces, is mapping the area between AI and people, right? So like what's possible, this huge sort of expanse of things that are possible when we work effectively together. And I think that's, a core component to what I'm excited about building for sure.
Okay, so I know a lot of folks talk about this idea that the AI does the thing the AI can do, so I can do the thing that only I can do as a human. The AI does the boilerplate, I do the creative, and you're saying to some degree that's right. But what you're very interested in is that joining point. At what point can we have that? The AI does the things the AI can do. I can do the things that only I can do. And this bit in the middle is I can do the things that I can only do because I have AI to help me, support me, and augment me. And I wouldn't necessarily be able to do those things without the AI there as my assistant.
Yeah, for everybody, right? We're all individuals. For me, AI is way better at writing emails. I can't do that. For someone else, it might be way better at writing code. But for everybody, the union is more effective than the individual. I think that's my core idea here.
Yeah, the idea we're augmented by it. We look at the things that AI can do well and we can't, and then we get that assistance. I guess it's those people who can do mental arithmetic in their head and they can add up their entire shopping bill in one go, and other people get their calculator out to do it. We are using a tool to augment us in something that we individually can't do as well as someone else. That doesn't mean that we are an inferior human. It just means we all have our own skills, our abilities. And then how do we fit AI into those slots to almost act as like kind of a leveler in some way, to kind of lift us all up? It's an area that I'm quite passionate about. I've mentioned this before in a lot of this kind of public streams. My wife's a teacher, focuses a lot on special education. And so when we think about kids who are nonverbal, suddenly AI can lift those kids up because they can find ways to express what they need through pictures, and then you can build an AI that understands that and then converts that into written text. The same as you're saying, Sam, you're terrible at writing emails. You can bang out some bullet points and the AI generates you an email. If somebody has, if they are nonverbal, they can still create the same thing, but they just interact with it in a different way. So it's that acting as that great leveler, but an upwards leveler. It's not about bringing people down. It's about how can we bring people up across everything.
Exactly. And I think like one of the things we realized very early on, so I had a very sort of clear vision about this, is that that union is most effective when you share a memory with the AI, when you both have access to this like ARI and this like store of information. That's what really enables this effective union. Without that, there's no context, there's nothing to work from, there's no shared ground. And so, LTM2 is really the glue that enables us to move into that space.
Because we think about sort of ChatGPT, it only knows what it's been trained on. It doesn't know anything about you. It doesn't know what you've done. The silly demo I did to start this stream, ChatGPT couldn't do that. It doesn't know that I've been reading this document. I would have to manually add that one document. But then what about everything else? What about everything else? What about everything else? So as you say, that instinctive sharing between everything we do is what makes the AI so much more powerful.
Yeah, and just to add to that, ChatGPT also doesn't know what you did yesterday, right? And what else you did related to it. What were you doing before you were working on that agenda, right? And was that related to the agenda itself, right? What was the entire journey? And I think, just to put it at large, a lot of companies out there, OpenAI, Anthropic, Mixtral, some of the others, they're focused on kind of like the prefrontal cortex problem, right? How do we build a really good prefrontal cortex? No one's focused on the hippocampus, right? But all intelligent systems need both, right? Something to remember and something to process. And I think like for us to make AI as human centric as possible, the system needs to be modeled after that memory component. And one thing we were, kind of touching on earlier is like the feel of accessing memories. If you think about humans, the way they access memories is like through their five senses. What did it taste like? What did it look like? What did it sound like? Et cetera. And they have a very good sense of time. Pieces is kind of like, it's a sensory system, right? Where it's saying like, what was I doing? Who was it related to? And you can ask questions like, what was I doing around Thanksgiving, right? That's how a human remembers things. Or, oh, I know I was talking to Mac a couple weeks ago about this topic, but I also got a really great package from Mark that he sent over. What was that package? So it's not that you remember the specific thing, where it was, that site it was on, whatever, but you more so remember kind of like fuzzy data around it. And that's what we're trying to build, is like, how do we just naturally access memories that are digital, from something that feels like just remembering it yourself, So I think that's a big thing to touch on is connecting those dots, if you will.
Yeah, definitely. You know what? We will. I'll get you to do a couple of demos of that in a second,
Yeah.
Tsavo. Before we do, I just want to jump into the chat. Say hello to everyone that's saying hello.
Hey, Mark.
Mark. Yay. That's a very young picture, young looking Mark there. He's definitely looking a lot more haggard now after the work we've been putting him through, getting everything.
It's been
ready.
a tough week. Yeah.
His beard is a couple of.
Yeah, that's how you know we got the stress acting. Yeah.
Yeah, I was clean shaven and dark haired at the start of this week. Look at me now. Richard is eating curry. So if anyone is hungry, you're now going to be a bit more hungry. Drew saying, "Hey geeks, hey Drew, welcome. Glad to have you with us." And Andrew here is joining us as well. Great to have you with us, Andrew. Lots of cool folks on the call. Henry's saying, "Yeah, imagine we live in the Matrix and pieces building the Matrix inside the Matrix. That would be very meta." Sophia's with us. Great to have you here, Sophia. Just going back to where people in the world are, Andrew is in Canada. He's actually not that far away from where I live. He's literally just one of the islands, like a very short hop away, but I'm just kind of close to the borders. So another Canada person. Roxy's in Houston. I'm guessing that's how you correctly pronounce that. We've got New Jersey. We've got Cambridge, Massachusetts. A lot of kind of US folks here. Great to have you with us. Product updates. Request from Henry. We need to be asked, do you want the blue or red pill during onboarding? I think that would be pretty cool. And in fact, saying about the blue or red pill, Tsavo, do you want to just show off? Do you want to take the blue pill and just show off all the cool things that LTM2 allows us to do? Let me add your screen to that, and we get the infinity mirror.
I will switch over to something that's, I'll just start on the Google homepage here. But yeah, let me just kind of give a high level, but the most important thing about LTM2 was, number one, it has substantial upgrades to the ingestion, right? The performance of ingesting data across Mac OS, Linux, and Windows. We have a couple of new modalities in which we ingest this data. And then storing that data, right? So we upgraded our local infrastructure, our local vector database, which lives on device. And for those who don't know, Pieces does much of the memory formation, much of the memory recall completely on device. And we're actually building the entire system to where it can run air-gapped offline, so no internet, or connected to the cloud, where you can leverage even more powerful models. So fundamental for LTM2 was better ingestion, more performant ingestion, better persistence, better retrieval. All those things kind of went into it. That was kind of like pillar one. Then the second pillar was the level of detail, right? So we, with LTM1, you kind of get these terse responses, which are not super detailed. And I would say the lack of information was quite present, if you will, interacting with the Copilot. So we've made tremendous improvements on the retrieval component, and therefore you're getting a lot more detail in the Copilot responses. And then the final kind of pillar of LTM3 was making all of the data inside of Pieces human readable, so that if you're not getting the response you're looking for inside of the Copilot, you can go over to the new workstream activity, which I'll show in a second, and you can see that stuff. So what I'll go ahead and do here is I'll give an example of the level of detail as to what I've been up to, this morning. So for example, and actually I'll start with a more real-time example here. So maybe I'm looking at some documentation and maybe it's like this runtime native semaphores package. So before, you might get a sentence or two back about this, this website that you're looking at. And this is just to show the real-time memory formation. And so all I have to do here is kind of interact with the content. You'll note I don't have the Pieces Chrome plugin, so this is operating at the OS level. And we can see a sample here. We can see some of the API reference. We can see some of that stuff. And we got some details as well. So that's kind of interacting with this content. Another bit of content might be, interacting inside of the IDE. So it's not just from the browser, but it's from all the tools you're using. And I'll show a summary of what I'm looking at here in a second. But we were contributing to this Couchbase Lite Dart package, and I'm in the repository right now looking at some of the implementation and tests for leveraging local binaries, right? So right now, Pieces is actually forming memories behind the scenes of everything here. And you can see we've got some very trivial index tests, classic doc1, doc2, doc3. But yeah, if I go back over to Pieces now, what I'll be able to do is I'll pull this up and I'll say, give me a quick, if I can type, overview. There we go, of what I was just researching in Chrome related to native, or I'll just say related to semaphores, as well as what I was reviewing in Cursor. If I can type.
It's amazing how no one can type when someone's watching.
Yeah, what I was reviewing in Cursor regarding CBL Lite, or I'll just say regarding CBL. So cool. I'm going to go ahead and prompt that here. Oh, I might have ran into okay, this will be solved by Tuesday. And I know there's a staging build. Of course, let me restart Pieces real fast. That's classic. That is so funny.
Did you sacrifice a chicken to the demo gods this morning?
I might have. We had a really good demo on one of our enterprise pilots, but then of course on the live stream, that's hilarious. So I'll launch Pieces OS and I'll launch Pieces desktop app.
So just for those watching this, we are literally in the last few days of getting a build ready. We are going live with this next week. So what you're seeing is, the final beta versions that we have been testing internally, doing some very heavy testing on it. So we're going to get these few quirks, but we're going live with this on, I think, Tuesday as part of our Product Hunt launch. So in fact, we'll get a link to the Product Hunt launch dropped in the chat, so make sure you support us. But all this stuff will be fixed by Tuesday. You're getting to see some of how the sausage is made. So expect this few quirks. And
you'll note the staging build is definitely built because I have the download that actually resolves that. I won't do that right now, but and then same with the desktop app. It also has an update, so that's classic. Well, let me try this again. So what was I just researching in Chrome related to semaphores, and what was I reviewing in Cursor related to CBL? So what we can see here is we've got a bit more of a verbose response here, and it knows that I was looking at the runtime native semaphores package, takes me to the link, as well as we've got this init with local assets test.dart file. We are working on the hyperlinks. It works for some local files and maybe not others, but we're working on the consistency of local deep links. But it definitely gave me a bit of information here, right, on cross-isolate synchronization, as well as some of the Cursor stuff. But maybe I'll go, sorry, go ahead.
It's worth noting here as well, we're not using a huge model to do this. This is like GPT-4o mini. It's like as small as you can get. This is a very honest test. Yeah.
It is. Yeah, and also the embeddings locally are not large language model embeddings. These are our own on-device for the retrieval component. So let me go ahead and say, how does, let's go ahead and see what this does. The follow-up question. That is quite awesome right there. So I looked at that file, and then I clicked a nice follow-up. So, how does it work? It says, you basically get your assets, which has your binaries. You chmod the download script to actually get those assets. And then right there, in it with local binaries, which is almost to a T what I was looking at inside of Cursor. You can actually see right here, as well as, opening the database and using it. So pretty robust detail if you actually drill down into some of this stuff. And what I can say is let's see, I'd also like a detailed overview of the SimForce package. Give me some sample code as well as a understanding, as to why that package is helpful. And this one's an interesting one because I did not refer to the package explicitly. I did not say that I was looking at it in Chrome or anything like that. This is just right out of the gate. But it actually has some pretty detailed documentation there on using the native semaphore inside of an isolate, as well as some sample code, and so on and so forth. So I could drill down on the API and whatever else. But the interesting thing here is, for example, if I go to Cursor and I copy this, right? So I'll just start like a new chat. And I put that same prompt in there. Let's make sure it's not the agent. This is just a question. Let's see what it gives me back. And this is to demonstrate, when a model has the understanding of the outside world, the rest of your operating system, whatever else, versus a model of the inside world, just the code base. There's very, very dramatic differences in the context, right? So you can see right here, all of this is actually just a complete hallucination. This package does not exist. It's wanting to create all of this from scratch. It's not using FFI to actually tap into, locks on the operating system. And Dart does not have a standard package, whatever else. Implementing this proves more useful. So by basically being able to take the context across the operating system, what you were just researching, what you were working on, and then pipe that into your code generation workflow, you're actually going to get the best of both worlds.
I think an important note is that the closest anyone else is getting to this kind of real-time information and accurate information is with these deep research solutions.
Yep.
And even then, you just have to send up a prayer and hope that it finds the link to that SemaPhore's package that you want, or else it's not going to give you the most up-to-date information. This is the most real-time, up-to-date information. Packages change so frequently. We all know that in software. No one else can get close to this detailed and real-time context as Pieces can, even with a 10-minute long deep research call.
And I guess it's also worth noting that even these deep research tools, these Perplexities and Gemini deep research, they only have access to the internet. So this is a public package, but most people don't work in public packages. Most people work in private packages. We think about the majority of the code that we are working on at Pieces, it's all private. So there's literally no way that Gemini Deep Research can access this information. Yep. The only way you get access to this private information is you either have to build all these knowledge mining tools that connect to all the different systems that you have, or you just let Pieces capture everything that you are looking over. And actually, there's a question from Henry, which I think is kind of relevant to this point, asking, does it read the browser window or does it connect to Chrome?
We actually, just to that point, it does a little bit of both. And so there are a couple of different, pathways to get information. So kind of the lowest common denominator pathway would be understanding the context and using vision processing on the foreground application, right? And so Mac OS, Linux, and Windows, they're all very capable of running OCR on device. So that's what we do. That doesn't touch the cloud at all. And from there, we have the text. We can discard, that segmentation, the actual image itself. We can take that text, we can post-process it, embed it, retrieve it, and then use it as context. There's also other ways to get more, call it faster, less computationally expensive context. And that's through the plugins, through the accessibility system, and then through like network and file information. So Pieces will actually fall back to the kind of like lowest common denominator, context ingestion mechanism in the case that you don't have the plugin, or in the case that you don't have, or like the application doesn't have accessibility or whatever else. But we do a lot of work to make sure we can get the context, if you will.
I think that's kind of, again, this is where Pieces is more powerful than pretty much, than literally anything else. There's nothing else quite like this out there that's able to capture this amount of context.
Yeah. And that's actually the biggest challenge, is tapping into the operating system. It's quite easy to sew together a bunch of cloud APIs, like you see with like Glean or Perplexity or some of the others, but tapping into the data that's on the operating system moment to moment is significantly more challenging, I would say.
Yeah, I remember a demo that you gave a while ago, Tsavo, where it was actually capturing your IP address. You went into the system settings, had your IP address, and that actually captured it. And obviously that's just something that you just can't do with any other tool. So with this demo as well, obviously you're saying that LTM2's got these much more information, brings together a lot more. And you mentioned about this idea of, you can say, what was I doing at Thanksgiving? Trying to tie into this human concept of time.
Yep.
Do you want to show off some of this? I know internally we refer to like temporal grounding, this idea that we can do these time-based queries. Do you want to show a few demos of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So real fast on the time-based things right here, it's just a single word, but just researching like that keyword that's actually processed by Pieces as a temporal grounding is what we call it. So just now could be the last 30 seconds. It could be the last minute. Pieces kind of like tries to understand what your concept of just is. But we can also talk about yesterday evening or over the weekend or things like that. So this is getting into, not real-time context in the moment, but longer-term contextual preservation and retrieval through the Copilot. So what I'll go ahead and do here is I'll go ahead and say, what was I working on last night? I'll just say, what was I working on last night, late in the evening with Mark and Brian? So I'll go ahead and give this a prompt. It's a pretty general prompt. I was working on a lot of stuff with Mark and Brian. I think it might have gotten a little bit confused on the stuff. Let's go ahead and give it a thing here. And again, I know a lot of this is fixed in the update, so maybe I'll do that, but let's try it out. Classic. Give me a summary of everything I was working on yesterday, especially in the evening with Mark and Brian. And Sam, I know you're on the call, so if there's any prompt pro tips, feel free to give me a guidance there. But
you could try updating your model as well. The 40 minutes is pretty small.
Yep. Well, this is much better. So we had an all hands. Yep. Prompt length exception bug. I know we were looking at that. We actually ran into that on this call this morning. That was hilarious. We had an all hands meeting, which was the team testing. And then we have a testing LTM2 chat space, which is pretty cool. Let me go ahead and try it with Gemini Flash, and let's just use the same prompt, but let's see the different results. And what we are working on is kind of giving users guidance and or potentially even leveraging the right model for the right scenario. But let's see what we got. Nice. This is way more detailed.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's awesome with Gemini Flash. Yeah. So at 9:17, 10 o'clock, we were talking about working on the Couchbase stuff. I know we were working on the Quencoder being hung and the memory usage. I know, Brian, you were on that. And then, just lots of staging builds. It actually knows, the previous staging build from yesterday, which is awesome. So pretty cool. But in the case that it's not able to retrieve, maybe, Jim, we show some of the other stuff.
Yeah, before we do,
Yeah.
a couple more questions that I think are relevant. So Henry's asking, will we get access to Claude Sonnet 3.7 and GPT 4.5? I know you're showing off Gemini Flash there as a model, and there's obviously a lot of interest in it. There's a new model every day almost. So I know there's always I want the new shiny toy. So when is Claude Sonnet 3.7 and GPT 4.5 coming?
Yes, I would say they're relatively easy to add on our side. We actually have some new services in the cloud that we've built to provide these. I don't know about 4.5 from an API perspective, as it's like fresh off the press, but certainly, thinking about that, Claude 3.7 might be a lot more doable though. So you can expect some model updates probably within the next 2 weeks after the launch on Product Hunt. But mostly we've been focused on LTM2, just working, if you will.
Yeah, because these models, it's not just a case of we add Claude 3.7 to a list of strings and it just works. We have to do the testing, make sure the prompting is the same. I know, Brian, you said with a lot of these models, there's quite a lot of work in making sure we got the prompting right, especially any of these reasoning models.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then one other question I think it's an important one to touch on briefly. Ronald says, I had to disable LTM because it slows down my PC. So you mentioned, Tsavo, that we've kind of reduced the resource usage. So how much impact does having this constant LTM capture have on devices?
Yeah, so in the early days, we were working on the catch-all, right, which is the lowest common denominator, using vision processing and segmentation and things like that. But that's quite expensive, right? And the most computationally expensive part there is, and not to get into too much of the IP, but I would say figuring out what to focus on, discarding excess pixels, merging pixels together, and then doing OCR, right? So a lot of kind of like image work, which is typically pretty heavy. And then the OCR itself, especially on Windows, it can take like 200, 300, maybe even 500 milliseconds per processing. So that was a big challenge for us. With the accessibility systems and with the plugin systems now all feeding into the same pipeline, OCR will be a fallback likely about 20% of the time, which means that your processing overhead from moment to moment is significantly reduced by a massive order of magnitude. So hopefully we can get that out there and see some major improvements. Yeah.
Awesome. So Ronald, when we do the new updates, when this comes out next week, give it a try. Let us know how it goes in terms of performance. And this is something we are focusing on. We are making it a lot better. Yeah. But I think it's time to show off the biggie. I think it's time for some work stream activity. Do you want to?
Absolutely.
In Apple style. Oh, one more thing. Go on, show off the work stream activity.
All right. So it's pretty funny. The kind of the saying goes is like, you have people that are good at Googling things and people that are bad at Googling things, right? And it's hard to get good at knowing the algorithm, right? And the same goes for models. You can see here, I'm not as good as Brian or Sam at prompting the models, and we're trying to make it, as awesome as possible. But in the case that you're just getting frustrated with, what's being returned and whatever else, you might think that Pieces doesn't have the data you're looking for. It actually does, and we have surfaced all of that data. I did mention the human readable component. So we have a new workstream activity view, and that's not to be confused with the old workstream activity, which we've since kind of, this one, the old one. We've since sunsetted that one, and that one was focused on how you're interacting with the Pieces drive. But let me show you the new one. So here we are. This is the workstream activity view. And these are continuously formed roll-ups of all of the individual events over time. And they are broken down by time, topic, source, all the likes. So we can see here from the last, however long, we've got some research for CBL Dart. We've got some focus on the runtime native semaphores package. It knows that I was inside of my init with local assets test file. Key discussions and decisions, and a whole bunch of stuff. It actually even picked up what I was doing in Cursor and Cursor's implementation. So really, really cool on just summarizing that little interval in time. But if I go back a bit more, you can see we've got this morning some preparation for the live stream. So we were doing some StreamYard stuff. It knows it's got Jim, Brian, myself. Sam was not in the call yet, but maybe on this one, Sam joined. Not sure, but we'll see. And yeah, it's kind of like really picking up on everything that I'm doing over time, right? And so being able to surface this to the user, is another kind of mechanism to tap in and just temporally browse, as opposed to relying on your Copilot query or retrieval systems. So we can see, this morning I was doing some demos on HubSpot. I was doing some database tasks, a lot of demo prep. Like I said, I had a big meeting. And then yesterday evening, we were doing some LTM and database debugging, some SQLite stuff. Don't worry, we did fix the corruption thing in one of our unit tests, which is awesome. Vector search, recall, etc. And I could pop into this stuff, right? And we can see, we were looking at how to solve this with the KV workflow mappings and workstream events. All of this is extremely captured. It has the Google Meet we were on, so I can look at notes from the Meet or the recording. And in parallel, I was actually doing some Dockerization stuff. And a nice way to kind of like drill down in this is I want to see all events that are related to code view. So I can go ahead and select that, and I can see, all right, this is everything related to code review from yesterday. Or perhaps I want to look at all events that are from Superhuman. So I can actually just, classic. Let me open this one up. I can actually select Superhuman, and then I can select Superhuman and GChat. And I can see, all right, by those two sources, as well as documentation, I've really kind of drilled down that task, if you will. So we're working on some pretty clever ways to interconnect the data in addition to just searching, and make sure that you can actually see all the data Pieces has, not just what the Copilot gives you back. So yeah.
I think one of the nicest features is that we prompt it in a way that it's going to lay it out for things you're interested in. So like, what are the key topics we discussed? What are the exact files we worked on? What are the next steps? Who did I work with? Those are things that, like, usually when you get like a big Copilot output, you're like kind of manually scanning through there and trying to identify. And so we're kind of rolling it up, making it very quick for you to get in there, get the information you need, and move on.
Yeah. And there's so much cool stuff in there. I mean, I mentioned this. I think I put this on LinkedIn yesterday. I was going to be going to, I'm in about going to an event last night, and I cancelled the event. I cancelled my attendance at the event, and then that just appeared. And there was an event section that said, cancelled going to this particular event. It picked up just from me clicking the cancel button that was cancelled. It was amazing how much information it's got there. Yeah. And as I browse through some of mine, it's got, here's a whole lot of meetings you have coming up. Just having that, as you say, Brian, that division between the different things is fantastic. And then there's just like a one-click Copilot chat as well. Yeah. So if I want to dig in deeper, there's a single button I can click, and that spins up a Copilot chat using that context. I can dig into more. So Richard asks, what would be the use case for this?
Yeah, and actually there's another one, which is, how does it help with enterprise collaboration, which is exactly the demo I did this morning. So I think when it comes to use cases, it's really like, as you context switch, picking up where you left off or transferring your context to another team member is becoming harder than ever, right? Especially because you're moving faster. For example, I'll fire off an agentic generative flow in Cursor. It'll take 5, maybe 6 minutes to run. And in the meanwhile, I'm switching context to reply to a conversation, review a code pull request. Like I'm doing things in that time. So actually, like, the events become a lot more ADHD, if you will. And it's really hard to say, hey, how do I take this and transfer this to Brian, right? Or how do I jump back in a day later, 2 days later, whatever else. So we are working on enterprise sharing right now, so shared long-term memories. But in short, the easiest way you could do this today is if Brian is working on some CBL stuff and Semaphore stuff, or Brian is working on anything related to let's go ahead, database corruption troubleshooting. What I can do here is I can actually long press on this, and I can say I want to send this one to Brian. I want to take a look at this one. Yep, this one's also related. This one's definitely related. And I can grab a couple of these and I can go ahead and download these. So I'll choose this location for LTM2. And right now it's a zip file. We will make this actually like just plain markdown, but I'll go ahead and show the demo here. So we've got this. And inside of here, we've got our nice roll-ups. So if I sent that file to Brian, or it's automatically synced over to him, I can go to the Pieces Copilot and I'll turn my long-term memory off. Eventually, this will just be shared long-term memories, but I'll go ahead and set those files. So I can pop in here and I can do all of these. If I can select, there we go, done. And then what I'll go ahead and do is I'll say, how did Tsavo end up solving the DB corruption issue? There we go. Perfect answer, right? So basically we're setting the auto vacuum to incremental. We end up creating a backup, and then we actually pipe that back up into a copy of the database, making sure that it has the incremental vacuum on it. We discussed this in a Google chat meeting. We did some research on Perplexity, and we consulted some external resources, like where we got the solution from this blog. So if I sent that over to Brian and Brian asked that question, how did Tsavo end up solving this? He has a pretty good idea of the journey that I took and also where we were working on it, right? So like I said, we're working on the deep links to these in GitHub or in your local repositories, but pretty cool idea, you know, when it comes to, you know, what were they working on? How did they solve it? Where was that issue and when? But that's kind of like a primitive example of showing how sharing across the org could be pretty powerful. Yeah, I'll pause.
That's kind of one of the kind of the killer features here. It's that we all work in teams. You know, software development is a team sport. We're not doing stuff by ourselves, and just that ability to share knowledge. You know, this is something that's designed for your work machine. We're not here capturing the internet shopping that you're doing, the chats that you have with your family. This is for your work machine, and you can share those work tasks with people. And it's what's cool about this is you are in control. This is your information stored locally, and you are actively choosing to push that to people. So I think it's important we touch a bit on privacy and security here, because there's always that fear, and there's a question I get a lot of, oh, you're watching my screen, you know what I do, this is how 1984 is this. But it's not. We're kind of trying to be very open and honest right from the start about what we're doing and how much is being run locally. So I don't know who wants to touch on this. I know, Brian, you seem to be nodding there. Don't know if you want to touch on some of the privacy stuff that we have built in.
Yeah, no, I think Sam can touch on a bit of this as well. He's been working on a bit of privacy, but at least from a local model standpoint, and data not leaving your device, it's absolutely possible for you to tap into a local LLM through our OLlama integration. And then in that case, you can interact with these materials, and none of your data will ever leave your device. So you can completely air gap it. You can turn the Wi-Fi off, and everything should work proper. I will give an asterisk that you have to come into it with like the mindset that this is a much smaller and less capable model than, you know, like your 1 trillion parameter GPT model. So the responses will be worse. But I could see a case in the future where when we're working in an enterprise, and an enterprise is bringing their own large model that's hosted on their server and it's all air gapped, we're completely modular in that way. Like we don't care what model we're really working with. We can slot those in and out. And so if you're ultra concerned about privacy, we handle that case. If you don't care and you just want the most capable model, we handle that case. And so yeah, from a privacy standpoint, there's a slight trade-off in its current state to accuracy, but we can absolutely support that. But in the future, we'll be able to support a huge, large kind of corporate lockdown model if that's what you want, and we're built modularly to handle that.
So I think it's a very kind of important thing that we are been talking a lot about adding, because AI governance is really coming in hard. There are companies that suddenly realize that they got folks using ChatGPT with corporate IP, with client data, with private data, because especially for a lot of knowledge workers who are non-technical, they don't know. It's just a tool you can use. I can just put this in here and this happens. And so just having that, that control right now of, yes, you can use a local large language model, and then that kind of that future vision of that bring your own model, keep everything inside your tenant. It really hammers home that privacy. But I mean, just in general though, just on a day-to-day basis, Sam, do you want to kind of touch on just how we make sure that a lot of the processing we do is private and secure? And we at Pieces, we're not mining your data and going to be selling you crap based off the data that we've got, and so we're going to sell your data to whoever.
Yeah, so I mean, it's always a balance, right? As a user, like you want to protect your data, but you also want like the best experience. And so I think like one of our core tenets is to allow for users who want each of those things. So, as Brian has spoken to, you can run a lot of these queries. You can query this data in an air-gapped manner. We support these local models. That's possible. And then for the users who love the sort of functionality and facility that these large language models bring, we want to enable that. Part of that is setting some guardrails, right? So these are ways to avoid uploading things you don't want to avoid uploading your API keys, these kind of stuff. We do a lot of filtering of the data before it hits the cloud. We run an agent before things hit the database to ensure that we're not saving anything that you don't necessarily want to save. And we make all of this as sort of open and accessible as possible, so that our users understand how to incorporate these features. Also, we'll allow you to turn on or turn off certain applications, certain websites. And yeah, I think across our sort of suite of features, there is space for everybody on that spectrum, from total air-gapped, don't want to share everything, to, yeehaw, let's go. There's like there's a whole spectrum of facilities we provide to sort of tailor that to our users.
Yeah, I just want to touch on just a quick demo actually of one of those features, which I think is very cool. Is from Pieces OS here, we have this long-term memory access control. And so in here, I can see all the applications that we've been capturing context from, and then I can control these. I can disable a source. I can say, you know what? I actually don't want you to ever collect anything from Slack. Yep. Maybe I use Slack for private conversations I'm having with my team, or if maybe I use it for external conversations that are kind of not relevant, or whatever it is, whatever reason, I can disable Slack, or I can also just delete the data as well. Yep. So anything we've captured this application, one click, that's gone. Example being, if you're, say, managing a team, you're doing some performance reviews, and you realize, oh, okay, I left Pieces running whilst I was doing this performance reviews. I don't want these to be available in case they get surfaced in a chat somewhere. Just go onto that application and just delete. Yep. The data goes away. You've got this level of control. You've got this ability to clear everything. So, okay, yep. I'm not sure about this. I want to clear the whole lot. And you have the ability to turn off the capture. So you can say, you know what? I'm about to go into some kind of meeting where I don't want the chat or transcript to be captured because it's private. But we do a lot of stuff at work which we want to share with people, but we all end up in private discussions, whether it's one-to-ones with our manager, or whether it's corporate level private discussions. So we have this ability to turn that off. I think that's very important to note. This privacy is kind of built in there. And you kind of almost need to make sure that as a Pieces user, you have this muscle memory that, okay, this is an HR system. I want to disable this one. So it's a very, very cool feature. Now we've gone a little bit over, but before we wrap up, and thank you everyone for joining, I do want to just get everyone to comment on what you think the future is. We're releasing LTM2 on a product launch next week. What's LTM3? What's LTM4? So maybe just go around the room. What do you think would be cool things to bring? And obviously, for those watching, no promises, no guarantees. This is not a roadmap. I just want to hear from everyone what their personal take is on what they think the next iteration of this may well be. So I guess start with you, Brian.
Yeah, I think we're getting a taste of it, but I think the key word for me is proactivity. So this work stream kind of summaries view is the first time that Pieces is taking an action for you, and all it's doing now is providing you information, which is really great. But my view is, what if it recognizes that I have a bug in my code that I didn't see? I was scrolling through and it says, "Oh my God, that's a critical thing. Let's notify Brian in this feed. He is a critical bug." And I'm gonna maybe I scroll through my feed and I say, "Oh my gosh, this piece identified this for me." It shows me the solution, it shows me the line of code, recommends the fix, recommends people to review the PR. Mark said, "Hey, Mark's an expert on GitHub Actions, and you would issue with GitHub Actions. You should add him." It's these kind of like these proactive features that are going to make me kind of a better developer and think of things that I'm not thinking of in real time. It's almost like a second pair of eyes watching my screen and making sure I'm doing the right things, I'm writing the right code, I'm asking the right questions. Yeah, that's my idea.
All driven by this kind of idea as augmentation for your memory. So it's instead of your brain doing the, "Oh yeah, I've seen that before," the proactiveness is doing that, "Oh, I've seen that before."
Yep.
Nice. Sam?
Yeah, so I totally agree with Brian here. So I think proactivity is the future, but also scoping it like away from the individual and more to the team. Mm-hmm. So I would love to know if I got a bug in my code. I would love even more to know if one of my teammates has already solved it, or if there's already a PR up for it, or those kind of things. And also like even further out from the team, right? So I want to push a certain feature. I'm in a big organization. There's hundreds of people. Who do I reach out to who has the knowledge that I need to push this specific feature? What does that look like? I design it, I architect it, throw it into Pieces, say, "Get me collaborators." That's where I want to go.
Awesome. Yeah, there's a lot of talk about the biggest productivity sinks in large enterprises, just knowing what's out there, knowing what people have done, and you end up reinventing the wheel because you don't realize that there's a team all the way over there that's built the thing that you need, and so you build it yourself. And so having that tribal knowledge available across everybody, very powerful. Awesome. And finally, Tsavo.
Yeah, I think for me it is like the type of questions that I think in my head, I want Pieces to be able to answer those, right? So for example, in real time, I run something, I get an error, maybe it's a pod spec error, something like that. And I want to go to Pieces because in my head, I'm thinking, man, I've seen this before. When was the last time I ran into an error like this, right? Which is a very like kind of, it's a very compound question if you break it down, right? Because you're not giving it a time reference. You don't know that. All you're giving it is a scenario, right? Like your current context is the search space, right? Or the search query. And so I think getting very good at situations like that is important. And then the second thing is I want to ask the same question, except when was the last time anyone on my team or in the company ran into an error like this? And then how did they solve it? Who should I talk to? What sites do they visit? Whatever else. Because if I know one thing's for sure, people run into errors over and over and over, and they do this in their own individual world every single day. And I mean, that amount of collective time is just crazy, right? But then you can apply it to other things too. Like when was the last time I got a question like this from an investor, right? Or when was the last time I ran this query for analytics, right? Or things like that. And I think those types of questions are uniquely interesting. And then eventually getting beyond querying at all, right? So what Brian was talking about, Pieces sees your current context, does the search, you have a real-time feed of all the information, all the context you need, and it's refreshed, right? And we're doing that on an interval loop in real time would be pretty awesome. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so essentially it's kind of similar theme across kind of everything here. It's we want to have this information surface to us, so we don't need to remember it. We want to have it spot it automatically and surface it, and we want to have this information across a wider organization. If we think about that corruption issue you got in SQLite, you can Google that because SQL has a public package. But if we're using an internal package, that's private to the organization, there is no way we can Google how to solve that particular issue. But if someone else has hit that issue in the organization before, we can extract that information in a private way that we're not pulling back their entire work stream activity. If we can just pull out what's relevant, that makes it a very, very powerful tool. Awesome. This is great stuff. Thank you very much. So for everybody, please make sure to support us on Product Hunt. We are going live on, was it Tuesday, the 4th of March? I think that's right. So sign up now to get alerted when we're ready. Links in the chat, it's also on the bottom of the screen there. So sign up, support us. And I'm going to have to wrap with this. I'm going to have to wrap with Robot Glock has said, can we get a Bulmer-esque developers from Jim? Sweaty shirt optional. I'm not wearing a sweaty shirt, but just for you, Robot. Developers! There we go. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed the stream. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.